Today, ZDNet Cloud TV is talking with Jean-Marc Henaf, CIO of fast-growing direct insurance business, directasia.com. Bonjour, Jean-Marc.
Bonjour, Angus. How are you doing over there?
We're doing well here in Sydney. So for our international audience at ZDNet, who might not know directasia.com, would you perhaps give a very brief summary of the business?
Oh, sure. Well, we started business in 2010 in Singapore first. We are a direct insurer, selling basically non-life and recently a term life product, only to direct channels, basically to our call center, our web portal, as well as our walk-in customer center. Today we are present in Singapore, Hong Kong, and Thailand, which was launched last year.
Fantastic. And Jean-Marc, today we're going to talk about cloud, but I thought also I'd give some context to the audience about, directasia.com and how important IT is to the business. And, your business was recently acquired, and at that time your CEO, or your founder in fact, said the following, and correct me when I'm wrong, but he said, we set to work on building from scratch a company with world-class service processes, segmentation, and IT that would outdo the old incumbents who were dependent on legacy systems and traditional processes. So that's a pretty strong statement about the importance of IT to directasia.com. And, I'd like to ask you about cloud in that context.
Yes. We actually came through the transaction at the end of the Q1 of this year. Yeah. Hiscox is now our parent company.
Yes.
A very significant group in the UK. And interestingly enough, we are their first outfit in Asia, also their first acquisition. They have an history of organic growth and expansion in markets in Europe and the States. It's a very good fit, very good fit in terms of products, in terms of business model. So we are very comfortable and confident for the future.
So anyway, let's jump into the cloud, and I'd like to get a sense from you, Jean-Marc, about what are you doing with cloud currently with directasia.com, and what are your plans for the future with cloud? Sure.
At the moment, we are already using some bits of cloud services in part. It's mostly for non-critical activities, essentially for backup purpose. We have designed our email platform recovery to sit on the public cloud offering of trusted security vendor. And so far, so good. But for critical business activity, it's a different story. Earlier this year, we have selected a new host for our co-location needs, basically our own DA private cloud. And we are in the midst of fully virtualizing our infrastructure to reduce our footprint. Estimation is that we are going to be able to do so by about 25% of both energy consumption saving and footprint reduction. So this is private perimeter that serves our core business application needs. But the interesting bit in selecting that new partner was that we are able to ride on their cloud offering to experiment. And essentially we intend to do so by using their infrastructure as a service and or platform as a service offering to mount our core applications and to try on the development and the QA basis. The whole idea here would be to try and test the elasticity and resilience of our applications, as well as performance and security. Because basically our approach for core business processing on cloud is still very experimental, and we can only really consider cloudifying the organization when we have ensured that the application can perform fully secured and have demonstrated proper elasticity and resilience under cloud test labs. So for this, what we are going to do is obviously partner with our core system vendors to compare the findings and validate our approach, essentially.
Okay, very interesting. So if I understand that then, so it's a infrastructure as a service offering, but from your data center partner, is that correct, or did I misunderstand?
Yes, it's actually one of the primary telco in Singapore.
I think we talked about a year ago, Jean-Marc, and you mentioned quite a few challenges with regards to regulatory restrictions on cloud in Singapore, particularly, and Asia. mean, what is the current scenario with financial services businesses moving to the cloud in Asia? What are you seeing out there?
All right. I would say that at the moment, cloud adoption in Asia and Singapore specifically still remains relatively low. Well, traditionally, anyway, financial services organizations have traded on the cautious side with regards to ensuring compliance with regulatory framework and specifically data protection regulation. And so far, cloud, whether we talk about public or sometimes even hybrid, has kept its level of mystery when it comes to what we can do or what we can't in respect of data protection especially. So I think that's the reason why the adoption rate is still a bit sluggish. However, the Infocom Development Authority, IDA in Singapore, is placing a lot of efforts in trying to clarifying what is possible and what is desirable to offer on the cloud platform. In their latest cloud computing in Singapore report, they are actually highlighting that there is a much faster adoption rate for the past 1 to 2 years, and that we are looking at a potential adoption rate of 33% by 2015. They are doing a lot to promote the establishment of, if you wish, a cloud ecosystem in Singapore by putting together or by helping to put together the right partners, be it from the telco perspective with their grid that would obviously provide the right infrastructure, network infrastructure, but also more with regards to computing technologies, network and security providers, so as to put in place all the layers that would offer infrastructure as a service, platform as a service to organization. And so far, it shows in some case studies that they are putting in their report, for example, highlighting that a certain number of organizations are taking up services such as email, corporate emails, sort of service on the cloud, but also some HR activities. So there is a take-up rate, but for commercial trading, especially in the financial industry, I think it's a bit too early to tell.
Yes, and obviously, there are some significant, regulatory challenges that we've talked about before, with the Monetary Authority of Singapore having quite strong stipulations about what businesses can and can't do with private data. Jean-Marc, what is your feeling? Are there some solutions around that? I was thinking of more like hybrid cloud offerings where you could have some non-identifiable data in the cloud, let's say, and are these some possibilities?
Okay. Well, if you talk about cloud challenges, I mean, the first one is again data protection and data protection. We also know that there are a new regulatory framework coming in place, especially this July 2014 in Singapore with the Personal Data Protection Act, PDPA. In Hong Kong, if I want to expand a little bit further, they also have the Personal Data Ordinance for more than a year now. So essentially, personal data protection is very key to cloud enablement in the financial industry. If you look back in decades, organizations have been spending heaps in building defenses in their private environment. I would even say fences, concentric layers of fences, perimeter fences. But when you talk about cloud, basically the perimeter notion is a bit like becomes cloudy. Obviously, you do not have the right notion of what the perimeter is. So the notion of building fences becomes a little bit irrelevant. So the data protection and the data protection resolution becomes the main issue. So here, I think the focus must shift on enabling data intelligence. What I mean by data intelligence is turning the data into a piece of inalterable object of truth, meaning that, in short, fingerprinting your data so as to ensure that only legitimate application, beholders or custodian can access to it and use it. Actually, there are already some technologies on the way to enable such keyless signature, and I think promoting such technology to the right level of regulatory understanding would be the key in the future to lifting the barriers of massive cloud adoption, basically.
What about, you know, some challenges for you as a business that's in Hong Kong and Thailand? You know, in terms of trying to move to the cloud, are there some issues with regards to variable networking capabilities in those different economies?
To me, again, it all depends how the market reacts to its own framework. Obviously, Singapore and Hong Kong have seen very stringent and inefficient regulatory framework coming their way in the past few years. I think it's very healthy for a mature market, and organizations in these places have had to adapt to it and basically adapt their processes, their security and their own data governance in the organization to ensure compliance. In less developed markets, obviously, organizations could believe that they are having a better, freer hand to use data, but typically, especially in places like Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, their own local regulators are looking up to what happens in places like Singapore, Hong Kong, and obviously westward as well. So in no time, proper regulatory framework will be put in place in these countries, and organizations who would not be ready to face the challenge would very likely exit the market. So I don't think that it's a challenge that we need to be worried about.
I've got one further question I would like to ask you, which is this. I understand from our email exchanges earlier that you've been losing sleep to watch the France soccer team play in the Soccer World Cup. So how far do you think France can go, and who's going to win the World Cup?
All the way, my friend, all the way.
Vive la France!